Well, welcome to this edition of Whiskey and Wealth Tech. I'm your host, Alex Sermon, Managing Director of Wealth and Institutional here at First Rate. Joining me today is Hamza Qadir. Hamza, welcome to the show, and thanks for being with me.
Man, thanks for having me, Alex. I appreciate being here. I think, first of all, thanks for hosting us here. Thanks for hosting all of our partners and cohort here. We're excited to be on campus again and excited to be on the podcast. Let's enjoy some whiskey while we chat.
Absolutely. So to introduce our whiskey for this episode, we are drinking Frey Ranch straight bourbon. So this is a craft distillery out of northern Nevada in Fallon, actually, just east of the Sierra Nevadas. And they actually grow all of their own grain that are used for their whiskey. So started out as a farm, been farming for 165 years, and then decided to make whiskey. So we'll dive right in. So this is a really good bourbon. I'm getting a lot of corn notes on it, vanilla. It's not as spicy as some bourbons as you may have. The rye content is pretty low compared to some other bourbons. But how are you liking it, Hamza?
Very smooth, strong. That's how I like my bourbons. So that's good. It's a good start. I'm picking up on some of the notes that you mentioned. So I'm still a connoisseur entering the space right now. I'm learning from masters like yourself around the right type of whiskeys and bourbons. So it's good so far. I'm sure I'll enjoy it through the rest of our chat.
Absolutely. And with this being a craft distillery, that it's their own farm, they put a ton of information on the bottle. You've got the exact percentages of the grain content, how old it is, what batch number it is. And so they provide a lot of information. And one of the things they provide is their motto, which is, if you'll be good to the land will be good to you, which really ties in well with our episode today, talking about the Founders Arena. So Hamza, would you mind giving us a little bit of background about yourself? And
Sure.
then what is Founders Arena, and why does it tie back to the land being good to us?
Yeah, and I'll mention this one thing. I asked Alex how does he pick the drink of choice for our conversation, and he said that there's always a story that we want to tie to it. So I'm going to try to make sure that our conversation helps tie back to that. But by way of background, real quick, Hamza Qadir. I've been in the entrepreneurship, corporate innovation, investment, venture world pretty much my entire career. I was a very healthcare focused nerd for a strong time period, and in grad school I ended up starting my own company just to help pay off some of the grad school debt that I had accumulated. That company went on to grow a lot bigger, better than I expected it to, and help pay off the grad school altogether. So I was super happy about that, and it started my journey into entrepreneurism altogether. And that was in the healthcare space. At the time, I also got an opportunity to go and work on some important accounts, Walmart and Tyson and JB Hunt over at Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay.
And so while I was out there, I had a chance to, again, see some things, especially for those type of clients. You imagine that innovation and the latest and the greatest is what's expected on a day in, day out basis, right? And so what we started realizing was that some of the things that our clients were ultimately asking for, our enterprise level clients, they wanted the next generation of tools and solutions and benefits to provide back to their employees. And so what we ended up ultimately becoming was an engine that would help Blue Cross work with startups. And that gave us the ammo we needed to go back to the board and say, hey, let's build out this division. And so outside of just partnering with startups, how do you also make the right investments within startups so that enterprises can participate in that upside, and then startups actually have the structure and the backing they need from enterprise level customers to help their future growth and their future position. And so helped big companies like Blue Cross, and most recently FIS with the accelerator program that we've ran with them. Mm-hmm. And now obviously here we are today, and that's kind of the inception of the Founders Arena itself. So the foundation of the Founders Arena and the accelerator program that we're putting on here, specifically focusing on wealth technology, is actually started by a public-private partnership between the city of Arlington, you all over at First Rate, and the byproduct of that partnership is actually the manifestation of a 501c3 nonprofit organization, the Founders Arena, and our mission and vision in that sense is to ultimately build not only strong accelerator programs that are differentiated and focusing solely on, not solely, but primarily solely on generating revenues for these companies. Revenues are always a little bit more attractive than venture capital because revenues stick, right? Venture capital can burn out quickly. And so we wanted to build a program specifically to help these tech companies build revenue generating opportunities and ultimately help them scale from that standpoint. And where the public side of the partnership ultimately comes into view is that we want these companies to, consider Arlington home one day, right? And so can you put part of your footprint or part of your offices out here, whether it's at the First Rate campus or the Founders Arena or anywhere within the beautiful community of Arlington. We want to provide some of that economic development back to the community, whether it's in the form of investment or jobs or, employment increasing, companies moving from international, from the rest of the nation here. I think that's where we would like to see and hang our hats on and saying this is the good work that we're ultimately trying to do. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit of the background so far, Alex.
That's amazing. And it's great that, we're here in Arlington, that we're in the headquarters of the Founders Arena right now, being able to film this. And we've actually got, outside of the camera, the first cohort actually going through the process that the Founders Arena has built for them to help accelerate their growth. And so, Hamza, could you tell us a little bit about what types of firms are we really looking for? You mentioned, wealth tech firms, but, what are some of the specifics on what you're looking for in, a candidate firm for a cohort? And then what does the process look like once they are accepted and they start with the Founders Arena?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we like to tell the wide world is that we're stage agnostic, and we are pretty flexible and broad spectrum in the terms of types of technology that we're ultimately looking at. So it can be very front-facing, customer-facing, an advisor tool, maybe some back office addressing automation or getting rid of any of those pesky inefficiencies that are always plaguing us in the back office. Or if it's, even beyond that, if it's on the audit, compliance, cybersecurity side, we welcome all of these types of technology firms to come in, because I think one thing that we've learned is that these types of accelerator programs are great for surfacing what's next on the horizon. So when we're asking wealth managers and institutions that provide technology to wealth managers, what's the next horizon of companies, or what's the next priority of companies that you're ultimately looking for, that's what helps us kind of, I guess, navigate across the landscape of financial services and financial technology. And we actually use a very comprehensive and diversified selection committee. So it's going to be wealth managers, it's going to be technology providers, it's going to be startup people, it's going to be venture capitalists, and they all provide us different lenses and perspectives on how each company is doing, right? And that's what we ultimately take into our evaluation process. And then I think ultimately one of the softer qualities that we're ultimately looking at, look, ARR and venture status always help, right? There's no doubt about that. If you're a company that's doing great in either of those two, you're well positioned to participate in these types of programs. And I was talking to our partners about this earlier today, but part of the reason why we picked the cohort that we did was we also saw that these are genuine people looking to impact the industry in a positive way. We've got a fairly diverse and comprehensive group of people that are part of the selection process. So the Founders Arena team, the Accelerator team in particular, who's got a background in running these programs, we kind of do the first pass in looking at, all right, are you part of the industry? You kind of meet that eye test, if you would, right? Then we start diving into a little bit more of the diligence, right? Where are you at in ARR? Where is your venture position? Have you done this before? Who are your current partners? Things of that nature to help us understand where this company is in their life cycle. And then we put those companies in front of the VCs, the technology players, the First Rates of the world, right? The clients of wealth managers themselves, and industry experts that can not pinpoint the exact spot that a company is, but really understand what would be helpful to grow that company and help scale that company. I think that's partially of where we're ultimately, like I said, we want to work with good founders that are building good businesses for the right reasons, right? And so that's essentially what we try to decipher coming out of the selection process. And look, we've got the objective side of it, the subjective side of it. We try to bring a perspective holistically across all of that to ultimately end up with our decision. So I think we had close to somewhere between 70 to 100 very qualified applications this last go around. And then ultimately, we distilled it down to 6 companies. In the future, we'll do 10 a cohort. But with this being our inaugural group, we wanted to make sure that we got good attention on the companies. And so went with a smaller bunch, but the average capital raise of this group was somewhere close to, I think, $6 million, right under $6 million. Annual recurring revenue was right at $1 million. So these are live in-market businesses that are, ready for scale, ready to grow, and ready to ultimately see what the industry has to offer back to them. And so we're excited to do the kickoff. It's going to be happening tomorrow. There's a ribbon cutting ceremony here at the campus as well. So we're excited to show the world our offices and host the world here in our offices for our big reception. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be 8 weeks of a lot of work, but nonetheless, we're excited about having our first group. They're an amazing group of companies, amazing group of co-founders, and couldn't be more happy about the situation so far.
Well, that's excellent, and I'm looking forward to attending the ribbon cutting tomorrow and see and getting to meet these companies and see what they have to offer. And so once a firm has joined the Founders Arena process, they've been selected, they've gone through the due diligence, they've had multiple eyes look at them and say, yes, let's put you through the process. What do they then do for the next 8 weeks?
Sure.
Where do they start out, and kind of what's the end goal for them at the end of those 8 weeks?
Yeah. So I think we've got it almost twofold, right? The sponsors of our program so far, First Rate, SEI, City of Arlington, several others that are jumping on board, but in the same type of domain, right? These are technology companies that offer products and solutions to their wealth management clients, their banking clients. And so the way that the program is designed, again, focused very much on creating revenue generating opportunities for these companies. It's a modular approach where each of the participating companies will spend a one-on-one visit with the wealth managers that sign up for the program and the technology players that sign up for the program. So when we have the visit with you all on Friday, it'll be each of the 6 companies, 30-minute meetings with you guys on a one-on-one basis where they spend probably the first, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes doing a product overview. So like presentation, slides, demo, founder story, all of that kind of stuff to give you guys a good picture on who is this company, what are they talking about doing, and the rest of the 20, 15 minutes that are ultimately left are for you all to start seeing, hey, is there a commercialization opportunity here? Is there a partnership opportunity here? And if so, what does that look like, right? What does that initial conversation even start to begin like? Is it a pilot? Is it a proof of concept? Are we going to market because, it's a no-brainer, it's an easy open and shut kind of consideration? And that's ultimately what we look to do at a very micro level. Now, we invite hundreds of wealth management firms, hundreds of banks to come in and participate in it. So during the course of the 8 weeks, they get a lot of data points and a lot of iterations on, one, the narrative behind their story and their product and their journey ultimately, and then how they're building upon that on each conversation, right? So as part of the development side of it or the coaching side of it that you would see is that the Founders Arena team, the subject matter experts that are part of our program, the innovation ambassadors, they actually come back and feed that data back to the technology firms themselves so that they can understand, hey, this is what X bank or X wealth manager is saying about you. And if you want to do business with them, this is how you should think about building your product, or this is how you think about partnering in specific. And so it gives each of these institutions, these startups, a pretty defined roadmap around how to approach the market should they want to sell into that particular market. And that, I think, is very interesting to folks like First Rate and SEI and, those technology players in the world, because it helps them understand, hey, if we were to go to a joint commercialization opportunity with this technology startup, how would we go about paying it? Because some of those customers are our customers, and we're interested in getting some of those other customers that aren't our customers yet. And so that's the more macro vision behind the how the program works. It's obviously creating these opportunities for these startups to work directly with these wealth managers and things, but it's also how do they work with the First Rates of the world? How do they work with the SEIs of the world to get to the rest of the market?
And so once a firm has gone through the selection process, they've applied, they've gone through the selection committee, they've been chosen. What's the process look like from there? So I think it's an 8-week program.
Right.
And so, from week 1 to week 8, what what do you expect to happen? What kind of growth do you expect to occur for these companies?
Sure.
And what are they really getting out of it?
Well, we start off our program with a wonderful kickoff reception, which we'll be hosting tomorrow. And the bulk of our program, the philosophy behind it is putting product makers and product consumers in the same room and letting them have a good, honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So we've removed a huge sales element. Now, there's a sales focus in our program, but we removed the salesiness, the hey, when's the next follow-up meeting going to happen, out of the conversation, and really staged it so that a candorous conversation can happen from, hey, evaluate my product and tell us how we should build it or how it would have to work in order to partner with you. And I think that we've seen that when these tech companies, these startups, these wealth techs are ultimately approaching the conversation from give me advice standpoint, they actually end up with leads and like qualified leads that are actually, meaningful partnerships that they could ultimately build on.
Mm-hmm.
On the converse side, when we see, and look, startup founders got to sell, right? They got to keep their business alive. What we've seen is when those companies go out and ask for contract or ask for the revenue, they get advice.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that we've learned in our program so far is that walk into it with an open mind, be coachable, have an open attitude to being receiving of the advice that you get, because those are the minimum requirements that institution is looking for in order to do business with you, right? So they'll just blatantly tell you, hey, build your product this way, I might be interested in that, right? Or, hey, if the pricing was like this, we might be more interested. Or, hey, if it integrates into First Rate's tech stack, that's an easy thing for us to say yes to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's essentially the types of conversations that they're having through the course of the 8 weeks. And we'd like to invite any wealth management firm, independent IRAs, local offices, family offices, investors to only come and have these conversations with these startups, these wealth tech firms, and see if there's a partnership there or not. What the startups definitely need is the product feedback.
Mm-hmm.
They always want to know, is this cool? Is this not cool? Is this compelling? Is this a need? Is this a want? How important is this, or how important is this not? Sometimes a quick no is just as valuable as a quick yes.
For sure.
So that's what we hope is the main interaction within the program. And look, the idea is that they walk out of here with partnerships, revenue generating partnerships with wealth management firms, with banks, with the likes of First Rates and SEIs of the world. I mean, the technology partners that you guys have done really well in building up a client base and building up solutions. Here are some potential added new innovations that you could bring into your product offering.
Absolutely. And so as these companies progress through the Founders Regional Program, they're being evaluated by various wealth managers, other kinds of firms such as First Rate, SEI. If a firm or a wealth management group wants to be involved and help evaluate these firms, learn about them, poke holes in it, and help them develop their product or their strategy,
mm-hmm.
How does a firm like that get involved?
We've tried to make it in this day and age as automated as possible. It's as easy as picking the date that works well for you. So you can join us at thefoundersarena.com. There's a visit button that any institution can ultimately just say, hey, yeah, I want to come visit. Mm-hmm. And that takes you to an automated workflow where essentially you pick the day that's most available for you. It's a 3-hour day, half a day that you ultimately spend with each of the 6 companies that are part of our inaugural cohort. Mm. Like I said, you'll spend 30 minutes with each of the 6, and then you'll spend maybe 5-10 minutes at the end of the day debriefing with the accelerator team and saying, hey, who did you like? Who did you not like? Where do we need work? How was the cohort as a whole? So we try to build that confidant relationship with these wealth management firms and the banks, ultimately to serve as their trusted advisor for this R&D that we're ultimately providing to them. So what the bankers have said to us in the past about these types of programs is, you guys have done a year's worth of R&D for us in a day, right? Mm-hmm. And that is helpful to them because they don't have to worry about the same diligence process moving forward. They know that these companies have been not only vetted by us as accelerator administrators, or people that run accelerators, but their peer groups, right? Mm-hmm. They're technology providers as is. If they can work with a First Rate, then they may be able to work with us as well, right? If they can work with an SEI, that gives us the comfortability that they've crossed the regulatory threshold, they can meet the diligence scrutiny. So we try to take some of that heavy lift off of the participating organizations and say, hey, this should be a fun day for you to talk to 6 really cool companies, and for the ones that you guys want to partner with and be interested in, great. If not, they appreciated your advice and feedback, and they're going to go off and build better because of the insight that you shared with them.
For sure. And so, whenever a firm is meeting with these, startups, is it remote? Is it
Oh,
on
yeah.
site? Is there a hybrid option?
Yep.
So, what's that look like for these
Yeah,
firms?
absolutely. Thanks for asking that. I missed that part of it. So the program overall is in a hybrid format, and we've made virtual opportunities available throughout the 8 weeks. And so we actually kick off with a bunch of virtual visits on Monday. Actually, that's when our first set of visits are starting. Obviously, we're on site this week, and we've got part of that planned. But the week of October 10th, 11th, we're hosting our conference in which we invite the wealth management industry and anyone that sees themselves as a enthusiast of wealth tech to come in and join us there for demo day. That's the culminating day for the program, and that leads directly into the first rate conference as well. And
Absolutely.
so we hope that on-site week is a really great opportunity for all of First Rate's clients, all of the partners around, to kind of get a 2-for-1, if you would, get a chance to see these companies at our shindig, and then continue the party over at First Rate the rest of the week. So that'll be the in-person opportunity, and then virtually we make it available, and we'll work with time zones. We've even worked with institutions and partners even in Alaska and Hawaii, right? So we'll even work with your geographic time zone and make sure that it's nice and convenient for you. And we've got some international ambitions, some global ambitions as well, and so we're pretty accommodating on how a wealth office could get involved. We just need to know that they want to get involved.
Of course. So now, so you don't have to be based in Arlington to be able to participate in this. You can be wherever. And to your points about the demo day, that is right before the First Rate Wealth Tech Connect conference. So for those of our listeners that are First Rate clients, you could potentially go to both conferences and be able to meet with these firms, understand what they're doing. To Hamza's point, get the R&D of a year done in a day, and be able to then go off and participate in the First Rate conference as well, and be able to experience that. So we're here in Arlington, Texas, where the Founders Arena is now headquartered. So what made you pick Arlington? You talked about at the beginning, this was initiated with a joint venture between the city of Arlington, the Founders Arena, supported by First Rate, SEI. What made this particular area attractive? And we're not typically known for wealth tech here in Arlington, other than First Rates. We're typically known for being where the Dallas Cowboys play, and they're still called the Dallas Cowboys, despite never having played in Dallas. But what really brought you here?
So I think it was a couple of things, and there were some very interesting advantages that Arlington put forth that I think some other municipalities or other areas may not have quite in the same way. One, First Rate's office is headquartered here. It's really easy. It's just down the sidewalk, so it's good to have an anchor partner just close by and within the stone's throw. And then it's also good to have a city that is willing to back a program like this. Many cities, economic development organizations are not thinking about how to convince the next tech world into their community. They're typically focused on bread and butter businesses, manufacturing, construction, the sort real estate, right? The typical high venture worth of economic development opportunities. And so I think one, it goes to say that when you have private organizations like First Rate that are forward thinking and tech forward, that's always a great added. When you have the city who's also on board with it from that standpoint, that's the double dip. Now, I think some of those additional unfair advantages that I think we can talk about as to why Arlington. You mentioned obviously the Cowboy Stadium, the Ranger Stadium, and all of our rich history around sports in Arlington contribute a lot of tax dollars ultimately, and those tax dollars have been actually reserved a lot for this type of activities and this type of programming. So when the city of Arlington says that, hey, we're going to generate this tax income and put it back into the city, they are obligated to help support these types of programs. So again, strong support from the public and private, both at a financial and a resource standpoint, is what allows this type of foundation to succeed. Now, I think again, when you have you know, some of the wealthier families of our nation here, very, very nice and localized. That helps bring a world in which the economic development can happen around them, right? It gives you the opportunity to actually go out and seek. And over time, what that does is build the right infrastructure. And what I'm getting at ultimately is it's nice to have a completely international airport within 15 minutes of your office, right? And the reason why that is because when you're inviting a company, one of our companies from Australia, headquartered in Australia, and when they say, hey, I can get a direct flight from here to Australia, not many other places in the world, in North America, in the south of North America in particular, that are just making that claim nice and easy. And, it's a 15-minute Uber ride over there, right? And so when international firms are looking to find a home in the United States, it's really interesting when you have the resources and the infrastructure that can help enable that, right? So when the city is willing to back it, come up with creative incentive packages, have a place where people can live, eat, work, play, all within, a reasonable distance of where they are typically, that makes it a lot easier for companies to say, hey, maybe I should consider building my office here. Maybe I should consider having a footprint here. And so I think it was, a little bit of a perfect storm that we had from the private and public side of it. But I think Arlington in general has done really well in building a strong infrastructure around supporting businesses. And now we're entering another phase in which they're supporting tech businesses, venture-backed tech businesses. And so I think that that'll help produce hopefully more fruitful economic development for them in the future as well.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's so interesting that Arlington's being able to do that, and not every city is thinking this way and trying to bring in these types of firms. And I'm a little biased since Arlington is my hometown. I was born and raised here, but it's incredible to see the growth that it's had and how explosive it's been, and just where it could continue going, because we do have the infrastructure to support that. And to your point, having an airport right by here that I can get anywhere without a layover is a very underrated
absolutely
benefit to be here. And so with that, what's the future of the Founders Arena look like? This is the inaugural cohort.
Sure.
We're just getting started. We've got the ribbon cutting ceremony coming up. But say 5 years from now, what do you expect to see?
Yeah, great question. I think from our standpoint, we've been actually before I even talk about the grander vision, baby steps first, right? We want to get through our inaugural cohort. We want to have a second cohort and a third and a fourth and fifth, and eventually start building out programs that are not just financial services adjacent, but help go beyond, right? So you spoke about a rich history of sports and entertainment being a part of the Arlington community. Well, could we build programs around that, right? Could we bring programs that are meeting people at the stadium, or meeting people outside the stadium, or just generally contributing to the entertainment district altogether? So I think that there are some nice opportunities for us to think about programs outside of financial services, and then even within financial services, having a global partner like First Rate influences us into having a vision of being a global entity ourselves, right? With you all having offices in Singapore and footprint in Hong Kong and in the UK, those organizations, those countries, those municipalities are now thinking like, hey, what's going on in Arlington, and why aren't we doing the same thing, right? And so it's interesting that even in our inaugural class, we're starting to generate some of that excitement, some of that interest from global entities, global partners. And so I'm hopeful and wishful and confident that I think in 5 years, man, we could get there. We can get to a global footprint. We can get to multiple programs, hopefully multiple sectors, and creating international corridors that, quite frankly, just don't exist, right? U.S. companies want to go out and, build futures across the rest of the world. The rest of the world wants to come to the U.S. and do the same thing, right? And so I think if we can create those opportunities, that not only creates economic prosperity for us, but our partner organizations, our partner countries, our partner municipalities as well.
Absolutely. Well, Hamza, this has been wonderful. I appreciate the time today.
Man, thanks for having me.
Being able to share what the Founders Arena is doing. You've heard it first here, folks. If you want to participate, just go to thefoundersarena.com and be able to participate in helping review these companies, see if they're a fit for your firm, or if not, just give them some advice and be able to help shape the future of the wealth tech industry. And again, the week of October 10th, 11th will be the demo day. So you'll actually be able to see the final outcome of these firms after the 8-week program, and be here in person in Arlington, Texas, and get to meet them live, shake their hands, and potentially attend the First Rate conference as well, and continue on the path of improving what you're getting out of the wealth tech industry. So,
well, thanks for having me, Alex. I mean, I think first of all, appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience about what we're doing here, and also hell of a glass of whiskey. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.